I started working with scientists to validate the effect of consciousness on the physical body and the physical world. So we would do all these experiments, and then it would be incredible. Like, I would just like focus on a device, and then the thing would just like go nuts, and then you would stop focusing and it would stop, things like that. But it was under laboratory conditions. We would create baselines. I mean, like with the scientists. Yeah. And so the scientists were blown away. And then I was like, wait, we need to tell the world about this.
Welcome to Far Out with Faust, everybody. I am Faust Chicho, and today I'm delighted to be joined by none other than Caroline Cory. Let me tell you about this incredible woman and what she's been up to. She's an award-winning filmmaker. She's an author, and she's the founder of the Omnium Method of Energy Medicine and Consciousness Studies. As a child and throughout her life, Cory has had numerous supernatural experiences which led her to become deeply connected to spirituality, the study of consciousness, existential topics, and the mechanics of the universe. After teaching energy medicine and consciousness studies for over a decade, Cory founded Omnium Media, an entertainment and media platform which tackles thought-provoking topics on the human condition and the nature of reality. In addition to writing and producing, Cory continues to lecture and coach internationally on various mind over matter subjects. Those are my favorite kind of subjects. And appears regularly as a guest expert on supernatural phenomenon at major conferences and television shows, including such popular series as The UnXplained with William Shatner, Ancient Aliens, and History's Greatest Mysteries with Lawrence Fishburne. Her films include Among Us, Superhuman, The Invisible Made Visible, and A Tear in the Sky. Caroline, thank you so much for beaming in. It's a pleasure to have you on the show.
Thanks so much for having me. Finally, right?
Finally, yes. we made it happen.
We've been trying for like months.
I know. Well, your schedule's even crazier than mine, so I'm glad we could make it happen.
Yeah, finally.
Awesome.
How are you? What's going on?
I'm well. I'm well. I'm trying to stay with what's important, with the chaos in this world that's happening right now, and kind of not letting it pull me too much out of center and out of my heart, because it's crazy. That on top of everything we're going to talk about. And, Linda Moulton House, she always says this is a classified reality that we're living in. And she's right in a lot of ways. She's right. I love that, though. It's true. Very much. A lot of reality has been classified to the general public.
It's like, but we're at a different place. We got it. I think now we can see through what's going on very quickly. That's the difference, I think.
Absolutely. We're we're bottlenecking and breaking through and realizing, there's just so much more to it, I think. And that's a consciousness thing that is happening to everyone. It's a phenomenon. So, and it's like the more things happen, the more people are like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah, it's like, no.
Yeah. So it's amazing how that works.
Yeah.
But tell me a little bit about your childhood and your background and what inspired you to pursue energy and consciousness studies. This is such a rare thing, especially for someone who, is still very much in the show business and coming from that business. I know it's...
Yeah, I'm glad you're asking, because actually everything started in my childhood. So I was 5 years old when I realized I could do things and see things, that most people didn't or couldn't. Of course, as a child, you don't have a frame of reference. So the first experience I had was coming in contact with this, light, a bunch of energy that was piled up in the living room right in front of me. And I realized that I could see it, sense it, understand it, communicate with it. And it was basically just light. And so And then, so I thought, of course, at the time that, everybody could see it. And like, it wasn't, because you're 5, right? You don't know what's going on.
Of course.
And so, but it was later that I realized, like, wait, what just happened? And so that experience was very significant because I remember very clearly, like super clear to this day, how there was an exchange of information. I could see it was more of light, but it felt and looked like a group of beings of light, obviously. And there was some sort of a weird exchange. It's obviously telepathic. They don't speak English or French or what have you. And
they don't need to.
Yeah, exactly. And so, and I realized they were telling me, notice what your brain is doing now, because we are communicating with you and we're going to continue to keep that connection going like your whole life. So, but you have to ask for it. So pay attention to what your brain is doing right this moment and say, this is what I want. So of course I'm 5 and I'm like, what is my brain doing with, yeah, but you have to, people ask me, were you scared? Or no, it was the most natural, beautiful, familiar energy, that I was just going along with it. And then I realized that basically they were asking me intention. They were telling me to focus on what I want and to say, I want this. And they were basically showing how telepathic communication works. And so this was huge, the understanding, like I said, the understanding of it came later.
Right, of course.
When you're in the experience, it just
especially
happened.
at 5 years old.
Yeah, you're like, but later it was like, what, you mean nobody else saw this? And so how could I see and they don't see? And how could I hear? Did I make this up? That's the first thing you think. Was it a fragment of my imagination? All that good stuff. Fast forward, I kept having these experiences, but then it was more like personal. Like somebody would walk in the room and I would see their subtle energy, like I would see what they're struggling with, like what's going on. And then for example, I would say simple stuff like, this person has a massive headache. Like, I would just see what's going on in their energy, and because of their kid or something, whatever. And then they would say it. They would say, oh, I have a horrible headache today, or whatever, so
So you were getting validation.
Yeah, exactly. I would get validation about all these things. And then, but I never thought I was doing anything special. That's
right.
The thing. So that's why, like, my whole childhood was filled with these types of experiences. I would see things on the other side of a wall, and then I'd be like, did I make this up? And then I would go, and you know what I mean?
Yeah. So it sounds like clairvoyance. It's
clairvoyance.
When you say you could see, obviously there are many different subtle ways clairvoyance manifests itself. And when you say you could see when someone walked into a room, do you mean that you could see like in their aura, or did you just intuitively understand that about them based on I don't know, it's like when you get a psychic impression, in my experience, it's just all of a sudden it's just there. It's like like a hologram. You have all the information that you're going to get, at least at that moment. In that moment, so it's like you just know, and people are like, "How'd you know?" And you're like, "I don't know how I knew." But that's kind of how my experience with it. But is that how it was for you, or were you actually seeing something visual?
Both, actually. So, for example, sometimes it's hard to describe because it's not seeing, like, the physical body is very material, but then the subtle energy, it's not exactly like an aura, like a color. I mean, sometimes it is a color, but it's kind of information. I don't know how to describe it. It's like coded information. It's like, it looks like a little bit, let's say like an aura, but it doesn't have a color. just for
Right.
people to imagine. And then when I would like look at it, I'd be like, what I would understand, it's information. It's an information field. And so the information was telling me or showing me, like, for example, the woman with a headache like this, or I would see like her head, like, throbbing, for example. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So
Oh, yeah.
it's a combination of seeing and understanding at the same time.
Well,
And
yeah.
and the understanding was through sensation. So it's almost like all the senses are merged. You hear, see, sense, understand all at once. And actually, this is later on. So, fast forward a bunch of experiences like that, I realized that it was all consciousness. It was all the mechanics of consciousness, how consciousness works. It wasn't, like some sort of ethereal. I mean, it was just like that's how consciousness, and we're all supposed to be functioning this way. It's just
Yeah,
like
I know.
we only
And we
see.
all have the capacity to.
Yeah, exactly. We only see the physical matter, but then the spectrum, the visual spectrum, continues on.
Right.
And so you can only see 400 hertz to 700 hertz, whatever.
Right.
But actually, beyond that and below that, there's the
Everything
continuous.
else.
Yeah, exactly. So if you train yourself, you can see the rest of the spectrum, and it's all information. So that's how I was like, wait, okay, so I'm not crazy, because I would get validation. So if I'm crazy, and then I studied psychology in college, to make sure I wasn't crazy. Okay, I'm not making this up. I'm not psychotic. I'm not schizophrenic.
Right.
So, and then I realized, okay, this is really important, because I was tapping into information that nobody else told me about, and I realized the hugeness of it, and this is how I delved. I said I need to go deeper, and understand the science behind it. Is there science behind it?
Yeah.
How does it work? And this is how I developed methodologies, a specific type of meditation to allow you to see and function this way, specific type of meditation to calibrate your brain a certain way, a specific type of, exercise, you know what I mean? So
Yeah.
I developed like this whole methodology, and then everything,
Well, I love that you said
Yeah.
that you've developed one of my favorite words, meditation. There's this correlation I keep observing in society and within, the circles that I run in, and that is that the people who are kind of the furthest away from meditation and understanding that we have access to so much more than we've been taught and told with our, in this material world that we live in. We've kind of been,
Right.
we've been hoodwinked. We've been fooled in a lot of ways, in my opinion, into believing that we're this body and that we have these five senses and that's all there is to it. And because our beliefs shape our experiences, we have a whole world not the entire world, thank God, but a lot of the world walking around very confused about what the hell they're doing here. And so when I hear you say that, it always fascinates me that the people who experience the least of this are the ones who are the most enamored with the five senses, the most material, the biggest skeptics of this fall into that category. And I just want to take them to the mountains and teach them meditation for a month, and then have them go back into their life and see what's different, see all the perceptions that open up,
Yeah, absolutely. And what happens is that when you open up to that intelligence, because it is the mechanics of life, of how we are supposed to operate, communicate, perceive things, discern things, etc. You realize that it's connected to everything. So it's like you start to understand the physical body from a different perspective, so therefore healing. You start to understand how you got here from a, from a different perspective, because you have a whole much bigger bird's eye view, so to speak, because you're seeing so much more. Why you're here, what your purpose is, all the people in your life, why and how to attract, how to discern. I mean, it starts to make sense.
Yeah.
Because up until then, you don't know what the hell you're doing. It's like,
Right.
how did I get here? What is this about? What? There's no, user's manual, anything, it's like.
And depending on the person, it's, they can feel very victimized by that.
Exactly.
And I understand that. But God, you really. But it is a huge thing.
It's huge,
and it's
literally
a beautiful thing.
It's like you're tapping into the background of life, how everything works, the connection between all of life, and so it has to affect your human life, because then your decisions are different. You understand things differently. You put things in a different perspective. It's like a whole new level of being and existing. So that's why I was blessed, lucky to have had that experience at such a young age. People say, oh, you're lucky. Yes, in a way. But at the same time, I think this was part of what I'm supposed to be doing. You know what I mean? Like,
yeah, of course, yeah.
Most children have those experiences, but then they forget. And for me, it got worse worse in the sense it got more and more and more. And it was like, wait, it's for me to really understand it and do something about it. So it was part of my purpose to have that ability and teach others how to do it,
Yeah. I think that the fruits that you have bore in this life already are absolute evidence of that you're on your journey and doing what you're supposed to be doing while you're here. Which leads me to my next question about the creation of Omnium Media, and then we have to talk about your documentary, A Tear in the Sky, because I don't think most people have heard of it or realized what you have set out to do and what you guys did with that documentary. So, give my listeners and my awesome audience a little bit of background on Omnium Media and how you ended up creating that.
Yeah, so from doing all this consciousness work and healing, self-development, everything else, I realized, okay, well, not everybody wants to, read the books or do a workshop. It's a lot of people just want, So I, studied film and, like before, and actually I was more in the performing arts too. But anyway, I was in the arts and
Me too.
And so I was like, wait, I need to combine both things and use the film media to convey this important, information, and in a kind of a entertaining way, but educational. So I was trying to reach a wider audience to help propagate or explain, broadcast this information. And so I started making films, and it was basically a range of topics. Pretty much the paranormal and the idea, because
supernatural, paranormal, those interchangeable words,
right. And because not only did I have validation after validation, but I started working, I have hundreds of students, hundreds and thousands maybe, probably all over. And so everybody, working with these methodologies started to also have validation and like life-changing and healing stuff and seeing things and whatever. And so because of this, I was convinced that this was extremely important. And I started working with scientists to validate the effect of consciousness on the physical body and the physical world. So we would do all these experiments, and then it would be incredible. Like I would just like focus on a device, and then the thing would just like go nuts, and then you would
Yeah.
stop focusing and it would stop, things like that. But it was under laboratory conditions. We would create baselines. I mean, like with
That's
a scientist.
amazing.
Yeah. And so the scientists were blown away. And then I was like, wait, we need to tell the world about this. And so I didn't want to just do like a YouTube thing. I mean, we did, but so that's when I started actually doing, combining the entertainment, the film media with all of this knowledge. And so we did Superhuman, as you know.
The Superhuman,
Now I'm working on the
Invisible Made
sequel.
Visible. Tell everyone about that, because that's the film you're referring to, which documents abilities such as, E.S.P, remote viewing, telekinesis, and blindfold reading, and really attempts to document the science behind how this is possible. So can you tell everyone about that film? It's very exciting.
Yeah, that one actually was extremely successful specifically because of that reason, that we did experiments with scientists on camera and live. So we would measure, for example, if you could change the pH of water with your mind, just focusing on a glass of water. I mean, of course, we had to, again, under laboratory condition, measure the baseline, what type of water, use it over and over again, over several, so scientifically. So we showed these experiments on camera, and we were able to change the pH, change the conductivity, the electricity going through the DNA. We were able to move objects, at a distance in a Faraday cage. We were able to also demonstrate that, there's certain people, like those kids, they were blindfolded, and we could measure the number of light photons. It was 0. You could do that with a device. There's no light going through, and yet they could read, and their brains were functioning, because we had EEGs and everything, were functioning as if they were reading, and then yet there's no light. I mean, so it's like, so we demonstrated unbelievable things. We demonstrated how the voice frequency literally changes the pattern of your brain. Like so therefore, how people say, when you say negative things, it's that. Well, we were able to literally visually demonstrate that. So this film, I think, was revolutionary, and so that's why it was very successful. For those who did not watch it, I highly recommend just watch it, because the comments that we got, for those who are believers, huge confirmation. Not only confirmation, but it gave them more of an expanded perspective of things they can do and everything else. And for those who are non-believers or new to the subject, I don't know how this is dinging. I mean, everything is off.
I don't know.
My phone's off. Everything's off. So, and those who are skeptics or new to the field, I was blown away, Faust. What would happen, I would get these emails, and sometimes people would find me on LinkedIn and whatever.
Yeah.
And they would be like, I'm a judge, or I'm a lawyer, or I'm a politician.
Hardcore skeptic.
Yeah, exactly. It's not the typical people. Medical doctors, mayors of towns, like what? Lawyers. Those kinds. Not that we're judging, but that's typical, of people who are into, whatever. And they'd be like, I watched your movie, and it made me remember that when I was a kid, I did this and this and that. And would that be clairvoyance? Is that so? It did something, even to the people that are new to this. So that's why I'm very excited about this film, Superhuman, The Invisible Made Visible.
I haven't seen it yet. I'm gonna. I can't wait to check it out.
What? You have to see it.
I'm just learning about it, so I'm
What?
very excited, because it's so far up my alley. I love it.
Yeah, and now I'm working on the sequel.
Nice.
So that was a huge one. And then I also started doing films on UFOs, because I was in this whole world. And I always like to bring a fresh approach, sciencey, very data-driven. And so we did this film, a few films, but one of them is A Tear in the Sky, the one you're referring to, with William Shatner, Michio Kaku, Travis Taylor, and, you know, the people on the USS Princeton, you know. So it's like, that was also another big film.
Yeah, and you guys also brought science and instruments to bear in that film, and I mean, would you give everyone a little taste of, because that's another one that I have to, I'm definitely going to check out. I don't know how it went, you know, under my radar.
I thought that's why you wanted to chat, because
I read about
so
the films,
popular.
but and I was like, oh, I'll watch them all, and then we finally, you know, our times we were missing with our schedules, and then we finally happened. But I've been crazy busy as well. But I read about your work, and of course, like all my guests and my people, they all know who you are, and they're like, you got to get Caroline. I was like, all right,
Oh, okay.
you know.
Yeah.
But I'm definitely, you know, I'll be checking both films out and your other work as well. I mean, Adam Curry was on. I'm sure you know Adam.
Yeah.
You know, a few months ago, and I've had a bunch of people who I think that you're probably closely associated with on.
Yeah.
So it's very, very cool. I love how things come full circle. But tell everyone about A Tear in the Sky. And so, you know, you guys were attempting to use, you know, scientific instruments to document UFOs, UAPs, whatever your preferred term for them these days is. And like, so what did you guys captured some pretty incredible stuff.
Yeah, so again, I didn't want to just go out and, like, you know, film a bunch of things in the sky and talk to people. I mean, it's already been done. I always like to do something different, especially with science. So, you know, as a filmmaker, what you do before you do a film, you research. Okay, what's out there? Who's done a scientific? Nobody. I'm talking in terms of a big, you know, documentary production.
Sure.
I'm sure there's people right and left who did that. And so I was like, what? You know, we need to do a full, serious documentary on UFOs, but from a scientific perspective. And so we teamed up with the folks who were on the USS Princeton, the famous Tic Tac, remember?
Oh, yeah.
So we came across them, and we said, you know, we have this idea for a film. Do you guys want to be on board? And they were like, yes. And that's exactly what we've been wanting to do, which is a scientific expedition. So they had a couple of scientists on their team. And so we worked with very mainstream, hardcore scientists. It wasn't like guys who are like, right away tells you, yeah, it's just, we think it's a UFO and blah, blah, blah. No, like they want
real
the
scientists,
data. Yeah. And they are like so skeptic. And it's like, if anything, they're trying to debunk themselves, you know, like.
Of
so,
course.
I had Travis Taylor as well. A lot of people might know him from Skinwalker Ranch. But the scientists were very, very hardcore. You couldn't even mention the word consciousness, you know, or like, yeah, it's like, if I said, it was like we were butting heads. I'm like, okay, never mind. Jeez, you know. But it was good because that sort of approach was not done before. So I wanted to do it this way. And so, of course, working with scientists, so we had to do it scientifically. So we set up 3 teams to triangulate. The problem with the typical UFO data is that you only have one camera angle. You know, sometimes you have multiple cameras, but showing one angle, you don't have any other correlations with anything else or other instruments or other data. So that's why we went out and we set up camp at 3 different locations, and Catalina Island and on Laguna Beach area, and in one third location. And we had hundreds of thousands of dollars worth of equipment, pretty much across the spectrum of physics. So it's like you had, you know, FLIR cameras, night vision, normal cameras, spectrum analyzers, magnetometers. I mean, all kinds of
full array of sensors, and cameras, and
you know,
you could
and
record everything that might be happening, as much as you could afford with a couple
Exactly.
$100,000, which is still a lot more than
It
most
was a
people.
lot more than
Yeah,
that. And it was military grade, so it
yeah.
wasn't like these cheapy things. And so then we ended up, I mean, with all of this, it was very costly production. And I remember in the beginning, because I fund the production, and in the beginning I was like, oh my God, what if like nobody shows up?
Yeah.
It's like,
We got nothing. Call it. Yeah, no.
yeah, exactly. And so we were going to do it for 10 days in a row. That's another thing that people don't do. It's just an occasional thing. But when it's like for a long
Yeah.
period of time, in real time, capturing stuff, that was never done before. So that's why, we went ahead and did. I said, well, you know what? Let's just do 5 days. And then, because it was getting so,
Yeah.
not just expensive, but it was very, I mean, I said, let's just do 5 days. If we don't catch anything, we'll go home. We'll extend it. And so the first day, of course, nothing. And because it hasn't done before, it was kind of, we didn't have a frame of reference. So we
Right.
were like figuring things out, calibrating equipment, from scratch. And so it took a while to really get set up. And I'm like looking at the clock, like, the
Did you
dollar.
guys use any CE5 protocols to try to, initiate contact, or did you just
Yeah.
were you just kind of out hoping, or
Yeah, so that was the problem with the scientists. So they were like, no CE5,
what? Why
no
not?
conscious, because it's woo stuff.
Yeah, but
And so I was like,
so they just want you to kind of.
I know, but so I was like, yes, but do you realize that, part of it is also connected, whatever. And they
Yeah.
were like, no, blah, blah, blah. We're not doing I mean, it was so hard to
Wow.
like,
Oh, wow.
yeah.
Okay.
And
It's even
so
more interesting for our skeptics. Okay.
I
So,
know. And so that's why. And I was said, do you know what? Let's just do it this way because most people are skeptics. So let's just see what happens. So, of course, in my hotel room, I was like, okay, guys.
yeah, you were like, hey,
I was doing my own CE5. I
right,
was
of
doing like,
course.
okay,
I would
well,
be.
can you please like do something here? Like, the clock is ticking. Like, give
Yeah.
me something. So anyway, I knew it was, I knew that it was going to be July 14th. So we started production. We were on site July 12th, and sure enough, nothing happens the first couple of days, and then the first sighting, and it was it was one that we caught on Catalina Island, and we saw it on another camera. We saw it on multiple cameras. That was huge
Yeah.
already. And not just different cameras, but different spectrum. So it's visual spectrum, the FLIR, and the night vision. So that was huge, but it wasn't enough. I mean, to make a whole film,
Right.
So then we got more and more and more, and we ended up with hundreds of hours
Wow.
of data. Of course, not everything is a UFO, but we did capture some incredible stuff. So we'd had things like they would come into frame, like literally do that. They come into frame, like turn around and whoosh, go back. Like,
Yeah.
what? We had things, we had a couple of things that came down exactly like the Tic Tac, exactly like
Yeah.
the Tic Tac against the wind. We had that one was cool. We had one that literally appeared in the middle of the frame. It's just like you have the frame, you have all the
Right.
cameras rolling 24/7, right? There's nothing, and all of a sudden there's like boom, this
Right,
thing
right
shows
there.
up.
Yeah.
It rotates and then boom, disappears.
Wow.
More importantly, when it picked it up, because the FLIR picks up the temperature. The temperature was very cold.
Wow.
So what is this object that's appearing and flying in the sky? And no, actually, did it move? I don't remember. I have to look. But I know for a fact, I remember how it rotated. And what is this object that appears up there somewhere and it's cold? What kind of propulsion system? You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that was, I mean, we had like crazy stuff like that. And of course, the ultimate is we captured something, nobody knows what it is to this day. No scientist, no expert, no meteorologist, nobody can figure this out. Basically, it was some sort of a lump of a cloud, or we don't know. It's like
Right.
something. It opens and closes like very quickly, like in 3 seconds or something. And then you see a bunch of objects popping out of it. And so we captured it on one of the cameras and another camera. And then we had radar correlate exactly in that location. And radar doesn't pick up light. Radar picks up objects.
Right. Mass. Yeah.
So it picked up the physical object exactly in that location. So it was like, what is that? And then we had another thing also correlated with a huge spike in the magnetometer, not the magnetometer, the spectrum analyzer, the oh my God, the intensity.
The one that, not the light one, but
the gamma rays,
okay.
Yeah, and so in the beginning, like I said, these hardcore scientists, the first thing I'm going to say, oh, it's a camera glitch,
right, or it's an anomaly,
or something's wrong, or blah blah blah. Like you have to debunk. That's how you validate scientifically.
Right.
And so no, it's not a camera glitch, because the other camera doing at the same time was capturing the exact same part of the sky the whole time, and it shows up. You know what I mean? So
of course.
So it's not a camera glitch. It's not radiation, because these little things, because it was only in one part of the frame. If it's radiation, radiation is everywhere. Like,
right, and that wouldn't be picked up on radar. You can't pick
exactly,
up,
and that doesn't get picked up on radar. So that's why it was like, okay, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this, it's not this. What is it? So something that opens and closes and a bunch of objects come out of it. What do you... Exactly. So we start calling it, like portal, because there's so scientists like, oh my God, you can't say wormhole.
Yeah,
like,
you can't. No, you can't.
Like, oh my God, like the big, So they were so terrified and nervous about their reputation, even though they're the ones who called it wormhole-like. Wormhole-like anomaly.
Wormhole-like anomaly. To
this day, nobody can figure this out.
That's incredible. So when you start to go down this path and you start to have some experiences, and then you read about many experiences, and you listen to the people who have, who at least as well as anyone can intuitively, that they're sincere about their interaction, or if they have this incredible part of their life where they were like, I was taken in a ship for a while, and I didn't want to come back, and then they have all this to say about, and just something about them resonates with you, that that they're not, listen, they believe this, and they're filled with knowledge about things that I've never actually heard before, but that resonate with me as true for whatever reason, and they talk about and it's been talked about, and you can find it in different ancient texts right here on Earth. We are celestial / extraterrestrial, extra dimensional family, extended network, let's call it. They use portals to travel, and that's like, and there's portals in different parts of the Earth, and that's part of the way that they don't use light speed, or your average propulsion system obviously to get here. And this is part of the hang up that materialists, will argue to death about, like, well, they couldn't be here because the fastest they can travel is light speed. And I'm like, that you've been taught that, but you can't say if that's true or not.
Fastest we can travel.
That's right. Physically, as far as we know, is the speed of light. But we know that consciousness is not bound by the speed of light, because we know who's calling before they call. We know they're going to call. So that's seemingly much faster than light, is it not? I mean, if it's happening that simultaneously and or with a precognition, obviously there's something in us that is able to detect these things in a non-linear, bound fashion. And so they would make sense to me then. I mean, it's just, I always struggle to understand how materialists get so caught up in the physical confines of our education, I guess.
Right, exactly. And so that's why I think that's the problem with most, like the mainstream or most scientists or more just the average person.
Sure.
Like they base everything on human knowledge, and it's like, well, we're not like the most intelligent species in the entire universe.
Advanced,
We didn't come up with the universe. We didn't come up with all these rules that govern the universe.
Right.
So how can you say like we know everything? And so when we say, oh, there are planets, but they can't be inhabited because there's no water.
Right.
Well,
I know. I hate that.
Maybe there's a species that doesn't require, like maybe creation is so vast.
Yeah.
So that's the problem. Like they can't hear because they can't fly faster than the speed of light. I don't think that's their thinking. So that's why you're absolutely right. Is we have to completely, it's almost like start from scratch.
Yeah.
And pretend we don't know anything about the laws of the universe and say, how would it be possible for a craft or a being to appear, here and then appear there or what have you. Right.
And what can we deduce with the phenomenon that we've observed, the phenomenon that we've recorded, even from what little knowledge has been allowed into the public. What we can deduce is they cannot be they cannot be traveling at light speed, period.
Yeah.
I mean, they can't be. We know they can't be because there's no place they could come from and then just arrive. You know what I mean? Like, so I don't know. It's crazy to me that the world is still hung up on these, on Newton and Einstein. I love both gentlemen. They contributed immensely, but we have to continue to evolve our understanding of the universe and ourselves and mathematics and what we believe to be possible. That's how things, truly progress.
But also people freak out like, oh my God, it's only Newtonian laws and stuff. We're not saying Newtonian laws aren't real. Newtonian laws applies to part of physical reality, but there's more than that. So it's not either or, it's both. It's Newtonian laws and other laws, because people freak out like, what? Everything I've been studying in college, Yeah. So that's, it's a little frustrating that way, but, it is what it is. People will get to it whenever,
Yeah. I mean, people are coming around to it. I think even, and I think there's a lot of skeptics who want to believe,
Yeah.
But again, like, because they're so rooted in material sciences and show me. But a lot of times I'm like, dude, I could show you and you still wouldn't believe. You would believe it was some kind of trick. You would not believe what you were seeing, even if I could show you and prove it to you right here, right now, And that's another human phenomenon that I'm like, man, I can't wait till we outgrow this. It's like, it's crazy.
Exactly. I agree. It's very, very frustrating. But I mean, isn't that what science is supposed to be doing?
That's
Like start with a hypothesis and then try to prove it. You know what I mean? And come up with, like, same with quantum mechanics, like they started out with a hypothetical equation, basically, and so that's why, like, it's interesting, but it is what it is, and there's a reason why some people have this expanded consciousness, and I think they have a much richer life. And everybody is entitled to their opinion, at the end of the day. So.
No, and I get along great with many a skeptic. I mean, they think I'm crazy with a lot of things, and I think they're crazy in a lot of ways to be so confined to what they will allow themselves to imagine is true. So but that's human nature. We live in this polarized world. and a lot of people are very, very polarized by the world, and that's why people tend to believe yay or nay, black or white, true or false, when, what I've learned, the more I learn, the more I realize that there are a multitude of different realities, and that may or may not be true, and that you don't need to make someone invalidate what someone believes, even if they believe the earth is flat. Bless them. I mean, what's the difference? I mean, they'll tell you there's a big difference, but that's they want to tell you that everything would be different if people knew that the world was flat. I'm like, I don't see it. I think there are bigger fish to fry as far as getting the truth out. But I don't go around attacking flat earthers and trying to debunk them, and I allow them their beliefs, because that's how we should all live our lives. And I hope one day soon that we are allowed more of the classified parts of our reality to come forward, because we live in unfortunately, a lot of the sovereignty that we had has been handed over, which has led to a lot of things being kept secret. And that starts with kind of the formation of religion, which was government in essence at its core when it was created. I tell people, I'm like, dude, the Romans were looking out, and they were like, listen, we love our pantheon and all, but how are we going to get this rabble to pay taxes?
Yeah.
You know what I mean? We got a problem here. And so they were like, well, we got to make everything under one, set of guidelines. So you can't have all these gods with different beliefs. And if we're going to get people to pay taxes and fear for their lives if they don't, big part of that equation is fear, then we got to make sure that they know that, well, they're not going to get another chance at this. So, reincarnation has to go, and all these understandings that come from, ancient philosophies and texts that were espoused were kind of thrown out, and anyway, that's another conversation. But I'm just wondering what you think is the best way people can kind of. There are people who are very interested in this, and even if it's an intellectual interest, I'd love for them to feed their interest and their passion. What do you think is the best way people who are skeptical but would love a little proof? What advice would you give to them?
Watch my movies.
There you go. All right.
Yeah, because again, I'm not trying to sell, but maybe. But
That's okay.
Really, I'm like I said, the films are what makes them different and refreshing is that we actually put ourselves on the judgment stand. We try to debunk ourselves. That's the point of the films. We're not telling you just focus on your physical body, it will change. Everybody's saying that, but I'm telling you how you can do it, and I'm showing you how it's possible that it's doing something. Look at the needle. It's like it was here, nothing was happening for 3 hours, and then you focus on it, and it's there. Okay, so what just happened? So there's data, there's provable, measurable things, and so. And like I said, I was saying it's in an entertaining way. You're sitting, watching a film, relaxing. But so, that's one thing. But more importantly, more than anything, is you have to be open to the possibility. You can just, like what you're saying, I could levitate right now and you're going to tell me, okay, what was the trick? Yeah. Absolutely. So it's like you could, manifest, you can demonstrate telepathy or anything with super accuracy. They're going to say, okay, what's the trick? Yeah. So if you're not going to be open to the possibilities, nothing's going to get through,
I love that. It's very good advice. So, I don't know how many skeptics are tuning in. I know there's one skeptic tuning in, my favorite skeptic, who will be tuning in. But I think it's a subconscious shift, and that I hope happens for a lot of people, where they they do, at least on some level, open themselves up to the possibility that, and a lot of times I think I've been put on this planet in part to help people, open their hearts and their imaginations to what may be possible, because I've personally witnessed miracles, since I've come down, and medical miracles, different kinds of things that should not be possible if we truly do live in a physical world bound by what we understand to be, reality. So, and I'm sure you have too, and anybody who I think pursues this life and this journey in this fashion you'll run across something that is mystical as you can imagine, or never have imagined, and things change after that. You can't go back to what you believed about the world before. So I wish that for everyone. I do.
Great. Yeah, for sure. I totally agree. And it's almost like if they don't, it's almost like maybe they think their life is fine, but it's not actually.
Yeah.
And so they have all these problems. And if they open up to this possibility, then perhaps their life, the answers to their life problems might also be different.
So I know we're winding down, but what was the most mind-boggling thing for the scientists to try to come to terms with in maybe the invisible made visible in Superhuman, and also in A Tear in the Sky? What would you say was the things that they were just like, how the hell are we going to explain this? This is,
I remember working with Glenn Ryan at his studio, and he was working with DNA samples, and I also had never done anything. So we were experimenting, and then he said, if you can just focus on it and try to change the electrical conductivity with, in the DNA sample.
Yeah.
And I said, what does that mean? What do I do? We didn't know. And then I thought, okay, I just got my guidance, and I had never done anything like this before. So I was just kind of shooting in the dark, but all I had to do was focus on what I wanted, which is increase the electrical conductivity in the DNA. So I just started focusing, and of course telling the viewers, reminding the viewers again, it's baseline, scientifically done in a laboratory, not just, So I focus on this DNA, and I wanted it to increase, and the thing jumps.
Wow.
400%.
Wow.
I remember his face. he was like, wow. And his eyes were like, how did they, how did you, what just happened? So I remember that. And it was a first for us too. So I was like, so is that unusual? What does that mean? He's like, yeah.
Right.
So then we said, okay, well, can I do it again? So we did it again. And so that was extraordinary, because it turned out that, first of all, the effect was extremely fast.
Yeah.
Literally, as soon as I looked at it, it would just
speed
boom.
of thought.
Yeah. And so, whereas other things, for example, with telekinesis or something, it takes more time or whatever. With the pH, it was more gradual. It was going down 1 decimal and then a little bit and then another decimal.
But it changed over time.
This thing was shooting up like crazy, and we did it multiple times. It would just be at resting, and all of a sudden, so.
Did other people were other people also able to do it?
Yeah, he told me other people could not as much, and so that's what blew his mind. It was like, what? 400 in seconds, literally seconds. So it turned out that the importance of this was that when you increase the electrical conductivity in the DNA, it starts to change its shape. It goes into a torus-like shape, and it starts to self-repair.
Wow.
That's why they were doing this experiment. And so I think at UC Irvine. And so that's why he wanted to prove it or demonstrate it. And that,
So cool.
So that was like I remember his face, to this day, he's still scratching his head. He still doesn't know how it's done. We don't know. We just know that it can be done and it
Yeah.
is done. And so he's like completely freaked out still. And another one also that I did was a long distance thing.
Yeah.
And I was in LA and they were in San Francisco. And they had a set of different devices like thermal, acoustic, electrical, electronic, whatever. And so I was concentrating, and I had never done anything long distance that way, like,
Right.
with objects and machines. And so same thing, without a frame of reference, so I started focusing, and long story short, same thing, the thing, the stuff started to freak out, and they did all the correlation, and I think it was something like 300%, something crazy. I don't remember the details of that one, but I remember the science, because your question was the scientist.
Yeah.
I remember his face and they said, we've never had this done before, long distance. And they wrote a report.
Wow.
And they said that the correlation was astounding, because you measure the stuff for a long time, and then you agree, okay, at 3:00 you're going to do this, and we're going to measure. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
So that's these two I remember till this day, how the scientists are still scratching their heads.
That's awesome.
And then the UFO, that whole wormhole thing.
Yeah. Oh yeah. I'm sure that's something that they're still, and maybe they won't come to an understanding of it in this lifetime, but it's just remarkable and amazing that you were the one you were the catalyst, and you were the one who got everything in place to actually record this happening, which is a phenomenon that I don't believe was ever recorded before, at least not in a way where the public could access it. So that's amazing, and just more, I think, synchronicities and proof that you are exactly where you're supposed to be. So that's phenomenal. I can't wait to check it out. I want to check out both films. But what you said about DNA and about the way that we can affect it with intention. I have a lot of experience in doing meditation and also, using human intention and heart energy to affect the health of another individual, whether that person is in front of you or whether they are across the nation. And I'm a student of Dr. Joe Dispenza's, and we always we call them coherence healings, and we're basically using all this heart energy, this love energy, which becomes very palpable when you have a lot of people, dropping into it and literally opening their hearts. Because when you feel this burst of love and joy, what's happening physically is your heart is expanding, it's opening, and it's taking in more blood flow and more oxygen, and it's literally putting out a much greater signal than it already is. And that's measurable, right? And so we do these coherence healings, and you don't touch anyone, but you surround them, and then we kind of use our hands to give the energy a channel down into that person's biofield, if you will, a scientific term that people can understand, but because there's this blueprint that is already perfect in them, and we're trying to materialize that in them, and the success that people have with these things is, astounding. They just did a study, and I love Dr. Joe Dispenza because he's doing what you're doing. He's bringing the scientists in, and so that the data can speak for itself. Because if you go around telling people that that you got a group of people who can literally put their heart and mind on someone and change their health, people are going to be like, get the hell out of here. You know what I mean? Take your woo-woo and go.
Yeah, exactly.
I love when they just did this thing with these vets. They had never done this before with these vets. They were suffering from PTSD, many of them pretty bad. And they just somebody had the idea. They're like, why don't we try to send them, instead of, because they usually are focused on people who are really physically ailing, and like some of the more mental difficulties and illnesses people have. They never really put this work to the test on that. So I just saw the results of this first. They were doing remote. They call them remote coherence healings. That's where the person, the guys in Alabama, and the people doing the sending the energy may be together, but they may just be spread out, looking at a picture, and they go through. And it was 9 out of 10 individuals in this group, in the first group they did, after a period of 4 months, reported the complete absence of PTSD. So everything on their thing was registering as normal. And that is, there's no medication that does that. There's no therapy that's done that. That is astounding. And so they're trying to repeat that and see, because, that's just incredible. Imagine, coming back from, seeing terrible things, and then in 4 or 5 months, all of a sudden your life is like, finding a normalcy again, and you're not even sure how. That's just, but like you said, the DNA, I think, we can use our intention to affect it in a way that is profound and healthy and wholeness, So it's so cool what you're doing. I'm so glad that, my people were like, talk to Caroline Cory. I was like, all right, I'm gonna. Let's get her. So this is so cool. I'm so glad that we finally got a chance to meet and talk, and I'm sure we'll talk again. I'm excited to check out your films and see more of your work.
Thank you so much. Yeah, absolutely. And again, like what we're saying, it's we really want to encourage people to watch these films, like I said, because for the believers, it's so much more validation. They can use the material to expand and to do more things and get different ideas and things like that. And so, but I appreciate it because, it's people like you who are also instrumental in spreading the work and the energy. To me, it's a whole consciousness. It's an energy that we have to keep pouring into the collective, to keep expanding the knowledge, whether they get it or not, whether they want to use it or not. It's really their own free will. You know what I mean?
But the more people getting it, the more they're going to be like, hey, wait a minute.
Yeah, exactly. So we just have to keep doing our work,
Absolutely. So, Caroline, tell everyone where they can find you and keep up with all the amazing things you're doing.
Yeah, so for the films, just go to omniummedia.com, OMNIUM.
We'll include links in the video description.
omniummedia.com for my consciousness work, meditation, healing, expansion, all that stuff, seeing the energy. It's carolinecory.com. And also I'm on social media. People can find me everywhere, Instagram, cool. Facebook, everywhere. Yeah, so...
Awesome. Oh, and if you're listening, don't forget to hit the subscribe button. And if you're listening on audio, please drop us a 5-star review if you enjoyed the podcast, or even better, write us a few words, 1 word. That would be incredible. Everyone here at the Far Out with Faust family, we're so grateful when you guys do that, and it touches our hearts every time. Caroline, this has been awesome. We're going to have to do it again someday.
Absolutely. I'll come back and tell you about Superhuman too.
Nice. I can't wait. I'm
and everything else.
Watch Superhuman 1 tonight. But thank you so much for your time. I know how busy you are. I'm grateful for all the time you've given, and I'll let you know when this is going to come out, and we'll be in touch.
I'm very grateful for you as well. Thanks so much for having me.
Thank you, my friend. You take care.
You too.